Good day, folks. Okay, we're going to practice some protractor use. And as you can see, I got this angle. This is actually an acute angle. I can tell because this is less than 90 degrees. A square angle is my 90-degree angle. Anything smaller is acute. So where do I start with my protractor? Here's my protractor right there. And I always want to make sure that I pay attention to two things on my protractor when I get started. First thing is this center part here. That is going to line up with my vertex. My vertex is the corner of my angle. Then I have the zero, and I actually have a zero on either side, right? But I want to make sure that one of them, and it doesn't matter which one, is lined up with one of the arms of my angle. So I'm going to start by placing my protractor here so that my center point is even with the vertex. Then, kind of makes sense with how this is oriented here, that I'm going to line up my zero with this baseline here. I could also have done it this way. See how my vertex is still lined up there? My zero is still lined up with this arm. All that changes here is which set of numbers I will read. So if I have it upside down like this, I'm going to start counting at my zero. It's in my outside track of numbers, and I'm going to go up. You can see it's just over 40 degrees, probably 42. We should have the same number when I reverse this. So if I put my baseline even with zero and my vertex with my center point, you can see I still have 42 degrees. This time, though, I'm reading the inside numbers because I always count up from the zero. Right? Now, this is easy enough with one angle, but some of the stuff we've been working on lately has had a couple of angles. So in this example here, I have a right angle as my whole thing, and I have to figure out how much to measure for B. Now, I could just put my protractor down and eyeball it, but when we see an angle like this, there's actually a very accurate answer that we're looking for. This one above it, I could say that's 42, I could say it's 41 or 43, and probably be okay. This one, however, we have to follow some rules. So I know that a 90-degree angle is my square right angle. And I know that this part of it is 38 degrees. So I have to use some subtraction here. And when I use my subtraction and take 38 away from 90, I know that this angle has to be 52 degrees. There's nothing else it can be. So I can lay my protractor down. Again, I'm going to put my center line at the vertex. And this time I have to put my zero even with this arm, because this is the angle that I'm measuring right now. So this is my baseline right here. So my zero goes there, and you can see it's just over 50. Now, if I was going to look at this and measure it, I'd probably have said 51. But I know mathematically it has to be 52, and that's okay. My lines are a little thick. It makes it difficult to find the exact starting point. I can also do the same thing here. If I put my vertex at the center point, my zero at this baseline, you can see I still have the same reading. But in this case, it has to be 52 because these two angles have to add up to 90 degrees. Okay? Let's look at a different example here using a straight angle. Okay? So right now, if this is my baseline, here's my vertex, I know that this whole thing, because it's a straight line or a straight angle, this is all equal to 180 degrees, the whole thing. Okay? However, I know that I have part of it that's equal to 22. So if I take 22 away from 180 degrees, I know that this one, which is a big angle, I can see from the start, this is, if 90 degrees was right here, this is far more than that. And so if I use subtraction, I can tell this has to be 158 degrees, because 158 plus 22 is 180. The whole thing has to add up to 180. But if I go to center my protractor, there's my vertex, there's my zero along the baseline. If I count up all the way from the inside numbers, because I'm counting up from zero, you can see it's going to get almost to 160. Well, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Again, you can do the same thing this way. If you put your vertex with the center point, 0 along this baseline now, and you're going to count up from the outside numbers. And you can see, again, almost to the 160 point. Okay? The last thing I want to share is this one. So here we have one that is just a whole circle. I don't have 180 degrees. I don't have 90 degrees. None of these are equal to that. There's no straight line. There's no square angle. But if I look at this, it's a whole circle. Now I know that a whole circle is 360 degrees, right? If you jump up in the air and turn all the way around and land facing the same direction you started in, you've done a 360, right? That's because the whole circle is 360 degrees. Now I have to use some subtraction in a little bit of a different way. So I'm going to start by going 360 minus 145. Let's get rid of this angle. Let's use the process of elimination to find out what is this angle. So if I take away 145, I know that 60 minus 45 is 15. I know that 3 minus 1 is 2. So we're left with 215 degrees for this part. Now we got to get rid of this angle because we're still trying to find this one. You'll notice I haven't even used my protractor yet. So I'm going to take 215. I'm going to subtract 140 from that, right? 5 minus 0 is 5. 1 minus 4, I'm going to have to regroup. So I'm going to have to borrow from here, and we're going to be left with 75 degrees. Okay, do you see how I did that? We started with 360 and took away this angle, and then we took away this angle. All that's left is this, and it should equal 75 degrees, because 75 plus 140 plus 145 does turn out to 360. So let's see. Let's lay our protractor down and see if we're going to get 75. Line up my vertex. Line up my baseline. We're going to, in this case, count the inside numbers because that's where my 0 is. And you can see right between the 70 and the 80. If I go this direction again, put my vertex right at the center point, my 0 on the baseline, this where now, we're going to count up from the 0 and again right between the 70 and the 80. So hopefully with a little extra practice we can get there. I know you got this. Let's work on it. Thanks, folks.